Hey, what's up, and welcome to this episode of EST, the podcast for established church leaders by established church leaders. My name is Josh.
My name is Sam, and I'm just going to say the Rays have had an incredible start to the season. And
Hook 'em Rays.
The poor Lightning fell to the Leafs in the first round. But
Lightning is the Hockeys, right?
yeah, that's the Hockeys. Yes,
And Rays is baseball.
The guys with sticks and ice. Yes.
Yeah, the guys you do not want to fight. I wouldn't want to
You
fight
really
any professional athlete. All right, well, cool. Well, congratulations on that. I'm excited for the entire Tampa Bay area. Should I say the Bradenton Metroplex? I'm excited for all of y'all.
It's called Champa Bay. Thank you very much. That's our new name is Champa Bay. Yes.
We'll let the world know.
Because we're winners, and we win all the time.
That's true. Kind of true. It's kind of
true. Yeah.
But we are excited for you.
Well, I'm excited to tell our audience about our sponsor. Church Team's been sponsoring the show for quite some time. I absolutely just think Boyd Pelly's awesome. He's the owner, the co-founder, owner, co-owner. Anyway, just an incredible guy. He really loves the local church, and he's created a company with that in mind, and it can handle this. Church Teams can handle all of your church management software needs. So, if texting, they do that. Project management, they do that. Giving, check, they do that. You want to do registration? Yep, they've got it all. And it's a great price to start. Their baseline price is $37 a month. For churches under 200 people, you can add features to it real cheap, like text to church for $10 a month, online giving for $20 extra a month. I mean, this is a great product for churches of all sizes. But I'll say this, a lot of times smaller churches feel left out of the whole software game because it's expensive and it's hard to do, and you don't get that personal attention. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what? Church Teams is your company. So go to est.church. Again, est.church. There's an offer for you. You get 2 months free. They'll, fill out a form. They'll give you a call, contact you via email, whatever you need, and give you a little mini consult on what your best needs are. So, absolutely love Church Teams. Go to est.church and go check them out. Thanks, Boyd, for sponsoring the show, and thanks Church Teams. He's got a great team there.
Yeah, one of the things that I really try to encourage people, if they don't have a church management software, something like this is very helpful. And I'll tell you a very practical reason for it. You have these membership profiles, and on these membership profiles, as one of the features that is in Church Teams is notes. So here's how I use notes in my church management software. Let's say I'm doing a counseling session or I'm meeting with somebody, and maybe they scheduled an appointment with my assistant or maybe even through email, and I'm like, who is that person? That happens to all of us regardless of the size of your church. I can pull up their profile, see who they are, see their spouse or kids. Oh, yeah, I know who this person is. And even take personal notes that only maybe me and the other pastors can see or me and myself can see, and then I'll check those out. So in counseling or in meeting with members, Church Teams, church software is super helpful, but there are some challenges. Yeah, there are some challenges with counseling, though, and that's what we want to talk about today.
Yeah, today's topic is counseling. It's a topic that has been covered at length in books and podcasts, blogs, but we want to add to the conversation. You and I don't often talk about counseling, but we both do counseling. You and I were talking pre-show about some specific counseling instances that we just can't repeat on air because, it's a little too personal.
That's right.
Some of the people that we're meeting with.
Yeah, and even for the record, Sam and I don't even tell each other, the details of these things because that's sort of one of the things with being a pastor. And you know this, listeners. You can't share this information. There's sort of it's not the same as attorney-client privilege. It's close, but it's not exactly the same. You can't share that, and Sam and I don't share that, and so we thought it'd be good to talk a little bit in generality, some conversations that might be helpful to you.
Yeah, I'll just come right out and say, if you confess a crime to me, or if I hear of abuse, I'm reporting it. There's no privilege there. You're getting reported.
I will do the same. So, I will even testify.
Yeah, but short of that, yeah, you certainly want to keep things confidential. You don't name names. If you do share some things with your pastoral friend, like Josh and I sharing, you kind of want to change it up a little bit, make sure that you can't figure out who it is.
Yeah, right.
You got to talk vaguely, and that's just the right thing to do. But I'll say this. Let's start with this. Your church is, well, it feels smaller, but it's not. It's actually bigger than what you might think, because people are not coming as often.
So this is strangely encouraging. You pastor a bigger church than you preach to.
Almost every church is bigger than what it seems on the surface.
It's a factor that, so in the day, you'd get around other preachers, you'd be like, hey, so what are you guys running? And somebody would throw out their Easter number like that's there every week, and that's wrong. That's on that side. And then some folks would be very pious and say, well, this is how many we had this last Sunday. That's the way I tend to answer. This last Sunday we had this many, But the reality, your church size is probably closer to 1.5. I would say 1.5. Sam, you probably have some statistics behind this.
Two times.
2 times your average attendance.
Yeah.
That's pretty big.
So at least 2 times. Some churches may be larger. Here's why. People used to come every other week. Actually, active attendance used to be like 3 times a week. Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night.
Yeah.
And if you were an active, faithful believer, you were there 3 times a week. Then we kind of went to 2 times a week, then 1 time a week, and now it's like every other week. That's kind of normal. Now, I don't think this is good for people's souls, so hear me out. I'm just reporting facts. I'm not saying this is healthy. In fact, it's not healthy. People should be in weekly fellowship with believers through the body that is the church. So what you have now is, let's say you have a church of 400. Well, it used to be you'd average 400 on Sunday morning because everyone came, but most everyone came every week. You throw in the guests, 400 people. Now people are averaging, your active people, by the way, are averaging every other week. So you still have a church of 400, but there's only 200 in the service. So what this does for counseling requests, what this does for shepherding people, not just counseling. I mean, we're talking specifically about counseling, but any shepherding issue. They still call to set up appointments. They're there every other week. They think that they're there all the time, but this is a very real problem because your church feels smaller, but it's actually larger.
Yeah, I'll add another element to this. In the South, still, and I know Sam, you're not culturally in the South, but you probably get some of this. We get requests from folks who identify as our church. They want premarital counseling. They want me to marry them. They just want to stop by and talk to the pastor about a troubling situation in their life. They haven't been to church. Our church, my entire pastorate here. I have never met this person. There'll be times we'll get requests. They want to come by and talk to me. It'll go through, our assistant, and she'll schedule it. She goes, look, I haven't seen this person in 10 years, and they want to come and talk to you. I asked them what it's about, and apparently their marriage is struggling, and they want to talk to you. And so it's like, there's this cultural Christianity still alive in the South, and that can add to these. And so that's a real question, Sam. What do you do with those? What do you do with the people who are so superficially attached to your church and they want to meet with you? Is that well, sure, come on in, or do you maybe try to?
I do.
How do you do that?
Yeah, I usually field those requests and accommodate.
Okay.
I use it as a gospel opportunity. I use it as an opportunity to invite them to church. They're going to hear from me. I mean, somebody like that comes into my office, first thing they're going to hear is the gospel. We're going to make sure they're both believers. And secondarily, I'm going to say, listen, really, you're going to, you do 3 things in your life and it's going to solve 99% of your problems. This shocks people when I say this. Read your Bible every day, pray with your wife, pray with your husband every day, and go to church every week. It won't solve all your problems, but it's going to solve vast majority of problems. So let's start there. So that's counseling session number 1. Are you both believers? Okay, you're both believers. Great. Let's get back into faithful, into a faithful rhythm with your local body, which is our church. So we'll set up counseling session number 2 once you guys come to church for a month or 2 in a row. And because there is absolutely no good in me counseling you if you're not coming to church. That's step number 1. And what happens is either people will go, okay, that's what we should be doing. and they will listen to pastoral guidance, or I'll never hear from them again. But at least I did the right thing, right?
This really brings up a good topic, and it's something we don't often think through. They're coming to you for one of two things. And I'm shooting from the hips here, but I think that this is true. They're coming to you either to ordain, christen, bless the dumb decision they have made. They have got some trouble and stuff like this, and man, they just want to hear somebody of some sort of authority, especially a spiritual authority, say, "No, you're fine. That's wrong. That's okay. That's all right." And quite honestly, there are a lot of counseling sessions where I do have to step in and go, "Hey, you're putting guilt on you that Christ doesn't put on you. You gotta free yourself from that." So that's a place to play. The other thing that they're wanting, if they're not wanting that, they're wanting to know what to do. And so this is your opportunity where a lot of pastors may miss the boat here. They want you to take the authoritative position. So that's when you do step in and say, "Stop doing this and start doing this. I'm telling you to cut it out." And they're like, "All right, that's what I'm going to do because I don't know what I'm doing. That's why I'm here." And so if they're the kind that wants you to christen their decision and you say, "You got to cut that stuff out," they're going to struggle with that. But you said the truth. If they're not, so I think that's great, Sam, that you go ahead and step in there with some three. I also love, I don't know that I've ever heard of anybody that says, "Come to church for the next month and we'll set up your next appointment." That really, and I think most counselors, I'm not a counselor, but I think a lot of counselors, I think parents, I think people would agree with you that if you're putting something into the conversation as well, it's more beneficial. It's fruitful if you're requiring something of them.
Well, I don't charge for counseling at all.
I don't either.
One, I'm not a trained counselor, so I'm not going to charge money for something that the pros do. I'm not equipped to do things that professional counselors do. I'm a pastor, and I tell that to people. Listen, guys, I'm going to walk with you. I'm going to shepherd you. We can call this a counseling session if you like, sure. But what this really is me kind of just giving you some spiritual guidance. You may need real help, professional help. I'm not an addiction medicine specialist, so if you come to me with an addiction problem, I'm going to have to refer you on to somebody else. I'm not a professional marriage counselor. That's not what I do, even though I've done a lot of sessions with couples. So I always view what I do as supplemental or in addition to counseling, professional counseling that they should be receiving. If you struggle with things like depression or anxiety, I can't diagnose that. I certainly wouldn't even have a clue about medication, whether you should or shouldn't have it.
Right.
So those aren't my roles. But I like what you said about authority. Yeah, I'm going to speak with authority. I mean, you're the one who came to me for my advice.
You don't ask me. Yeah.
If you don't want it, that's fine. I've got better things to do too. Especially if you're not even coming to my church. It's like, yeah, if they just want me to validate some sin issue, well, that's not happening. But honestly, man, I don't often get people that are combative, really, even when I call them out. You want to do it great. You want to be gracious, of course, and loving.
Well, of course,
But I very rarely does somebody just get up and walk out because they wanted me to validate some decision in their life. Most of the time, it's hurting people who are very like the person who hasn't been to church who wants to meet with me. Are usually in a pretty desperate place. Like they're at their wits' end. But I will add, we really shouldn't be doing what the pros are trained to do.
Yeah,
I don't think it's wise for pastors, unless you have that training to really take on that role. I think you could confuse people and potentially do some harm.
Yeah, I completely agree, and that's kind of our second point here is to, not only our first point, which just escaped my brain on how we.
No, we were talking about a counseling site. Requests are up because even though your church may feel small.
That's right. I forgot how we phrased it. I was like, oh, man, this sounds like I just left the room. But yeah, so the requests are up, but then also don't do what the pros do. Here's the interesting factor about that. A couple of comments I would make is more than likely you do know a professional counselor and you can sit down with them, and I've done this too. It's like, help me understand when I need to call you. Like, it's easier if they're bleeding, right? If it's a physical problem, I can look at that because I've been a dad for 14 years. I also have had some boo-boos. I can look at the cut and say, I can take care of this, or ugh, we need to go to the ER right now. That you can tell this one cuts deeper. Well, I don't know how to really see that when it's their brain and their heart. I can start. So I've sat down with professional counselors and Christians and faithful members of our church and said, help me know when to call you, because I don't know. And they'll tell you the same thing. I get questions all the time about theology, especially Christian counselors. I get questions all the time about theology, and I don't know. And so I usually tell them to go ask their pastor, that sort of stuff. So knowing that this is not combative, it's not us versus the Christian counselors like some people want to make it out to be. These are both, helping people, and we help in different ways. So I would say that first. The second thing that I would add to that is I say that without discounting what it is that we provide. I mean, I regularly go to professional counseling and have had long time professional counseling as needed. I've used local in person. I've used BetterHelp online. I've used these kind of things. I'll tell you, a lot of the times, what helps the most is somebody sat there and listened to me, pushed back when I was being foolish, and was encouraging when I was being right. And that doesn't take a lot of training to do. And pastors can do that. You can push back a little bit, but I find that the majority of my counseling sessions with people is me sitting there going, tell me more about that. How's that make you feel? Well, okay. So, and when you think about like Christ and Scripture, what scriptures come to mind as I'm just shepherding. I'm just guiding along as I try to point towards redemptive, Jesus, gospel-focused lifestyle all the way around. So I would say I agree with you, Sam. Sit down with them, kind of find that line, but don't discount what it is you provide. You're both helping in the same way.
Yeah, I would also, I think counseling requests are up, generally speaking. And one of the things that I do is I rarely go past 3 sessions with somebody. There might be a time where I do 4 or 5 for whatever reason. It's not a hard rule, but a general rule of thumb is 3 sessions. And, if it's beyond that, unless it's marriage counseling with a young couple and you've got kind of a prescribed path.
Right.
Beyond that, it's probably beyond you. You get beyond 3 or 4 sessions, it's probably beyond you, unless you're a trained professional. So one of the ways that I make sure to, kind of rein in my counseling requests is to limit them with any one person. And I know I may catch some grief over this, but especially women of my age or slightly younger, I'm just very careful about meeting with them alone. I know a lot of people have a lot of different perspectives on that. I will, in my office, but I'm just very, very careful about counseling another woman who is going through a tough time with her husband, sitting in my office, meeting, week after week after week. I just think that there's not a whole lot of wisdom in that. And it's something that I'm very careful of. But it would apply to just about anybody. I don't do monthly counseling with people in my church where they've got a standing meeting that they come to. That I don't think that's helpful. So I would just say one way to handle these requests is to just have a general rule that you don't do more than 3 or 4. You might break that rule for some specific things, but I find that if it's beyond that, it's beyond me.
Yeah. I do, but do you ever like lay all this out in the first few minutes?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Even before we meet, I tell people this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
With marriage counseling, I've actually got a young couple. I've got an email in my inbox that I have not answered yet. That's a young couple that are getting married that they want counseling, and I've already told them. Yeah, it's sweet. It's a really neat thing. I love it. But I've already told them what I'm going to do. I said, if you schedule with me, here's what we're going to do. Here's what it's going to look like. So I tell people up front, of course, like, manage expectations. I mean, otherwise it's just heartache. And I limit the time. I don't let these things go longer, hour max. Usually 45 minutes is my max for count. I mean, you're sitting there for 2 hours with somebody. I mean, there's a point of diminishing returns for just about anything.
Yeah. Yeah. You know, something that's changed in my heart over ministry. I used to hate weddings, premarital counseling, all that. I hated it. I was young, very young in ministry, and I didn't like it. And it wasn't a thing of my age. It's just I was young and didn't like it. The older I get, I stinking love it. There's just so much about pastoral ministry in which it feels like you're talking to a wall and people aren't listening. Also, there's another part of pastoral ministry that just feels so defeating and sad, and evil is so strong and stuff like that. But weddings, it's like, this one's fun and they're happy and both people are happy, and I get to like warn them about things. And that's a lot of my premarital counseling. Let's talk through sex. Let's talk through finances. Let's talk through in-laws. And it's real preventative. I think it'll work, and then I celebrate it. But I'm the same way with you. People will often say, hey, how do you do counseling? Or how do you do premarital counseling? And that's when I get to say, now my thing is I'll meet with you once, and in that meeting, I'm trying to determine, is this something that you need a pastor for, or is this something you need a counselor for? If it's pastor, we can keep meeting and we can keep talking past that. If it's counselor and their members, we will pay for 3 sessions at a partner counseling firm. And that's something that we've worked out, this is a great time to say this. We actually sat down, evaluated the local counselors. We have a campus here in Conway and another one in Greenbrier. So we determined 2 organizations in both of those that worked out a deal for us on how we pay and what they charge, that sort of stuff. And it helped the church out quite a bit, and it also helped them out quite a bit. We have a form we fill out. They have to have a pastor's signature on it. They have to take it. We put how many sessions we're going to pay for. They can bill us later. I'm able to hand that to a person and say, I want you to schedule a meeting with, for us, it's the Joshua Center or SALT, that kind of thing. And so thinking ahead, what I'm trying to say is, if you'll do some of this homework, if you'll do some of this communication, you avoid the feeling that I know a lot of our listeners are feeling is, well, if I say that, they're going to think I'm not wanting to shepherd them, or I don't want to love them, or I'm just passing them off. That's not what we're doing. We're communicating a partnership with experienced, educated people who are going to shepherd you through the needs that you actually have. So it's kind of fun.
I think that's great advice. We have a counselor that we recommend here in the area. And let me tell you this, if you're thinking about getting into counseling, goodness, we need more Christian counselors out there that are, that are good at what they do. They are. Yeah. I know it's rare in Bradenton. Maybe the other communities there's more, but we just don't have a good selection of Christian counselors. So many Christian counselors. They are everywhere. That's why we had to actually evaluate it, because again, in the South, it's like Christian Brothers Automotive. It's like Christians just you slap a fish on it, and then you got all the Christians buying it, And so we had to actually say, but are you really going to use principles that we agree with, and those sort of things? So, and we don't have that in Southwest Florida. There is a dearth of good Christian counselors.
Hey, Christian counselors.
There's some, but we could absolutely use more.
Hey, Christian counselors, if you want great weather, championship baseball teams, then you need to go down to Champa Bay. That's
there you go.
That's the pitch. What's the last?
All right,
thing?
last thing. How do you give people the hard advice? Because what I often, if it's somebody that I've got enough trust with, you know what I tell them? Don't do stupid, or stop doing stupid. That's what I'm known for. It's like, stop doing stupid.
Yeah. What's the oh man, I can't think of his name, but he's the dad on Elf.
Newhart.
Have you seen that skit that he does? Yeah, it's Bob Newhart. Skit? Yeah, stop it.
Stop it.
It's beautiful. Here, take out a piece of paper. I want you to write this down. And they do it. He goes, stop it.
So if you don't know what we're talking about, Google Bob Newhart "Stop It" counseling session and watch and laugh. And it is one of the greatest TV moments of all time.
I challenge you not to laugh during it. It is so funny, because if you've ever done Christian counseling, if you've ever done pastoral care, you've wanted to say, well, yeah, I know why you feel that way about yourself. Cut it out.
That was really stupid. Stop doing stupid.
I have found there's a couple different ways you can do it. One is just to be direct and just say, listen, I'm just going to be real honest with you. I don't think this is going to be a surprise to you, but, I don't confirm or affirm this decision that you're making. I just don't. And we could talk through why that is, but I think you know that. So let's just get that on the table. I've said directly that way. Another way that I say it sometimes, if I'm wanting to be a little bit more gentle, is like, so, Sam, how would you answer to the person who might say that baseball's boring? What would you say to that? Well, and it's just trying to get them to where they're going to have to answer it. And you'd be surprised at how many times when they're making silly decisions, they'll go, because they know it's not.
I mean, I would respond, no, you're boring.
Well, okay, let's explore that a little bit. Why do you get so defensive about baseball? So, I think a lot of times one of my biggest advices, and you probably know this if you're listening to this show, is ask questions. Ask a lot of questions. You're trying to get them to, in a healthy way, you're guiding them through and past the smoke and mirrors of things that foolish people have said in their lives. Just ask them questions that gear them towards, how do you think Jesus would respond to this situation? If he were alive with your circumstances, what is it that you think he would do? And, just more and more you ask those questions because they're not stupid people. They're not even ignorant. They are very smart humans who live valid adult lives. They're just confused in an area, and we all get that way. So I encourage you to do it that way. What else?
Well, thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
For listening. I hope they're watching. That's why I waved at the beginning, so they see us wave. Yeah. Make sure you're watching us on YouTube. What else?
The YouTubers.
Church Answers needs to tell them a little bit about that, man.
Yeah, Church Answers, we got a lot going on. So one of the best things you can do is just go to churchanswers.com. All sorts of free resources. We've got certifications you can check out. We've got single resources for things like doing a membership class, launching a new product line called Church Equip. Very excited about that one, where we're helping pastors do the things that they know they should do but don't have time. And, of course, we've got our bookstore. So you can always go to churchanswers.com, click on the bookstore tab, and order physical products as well. It's powered by Christian Book, another good company. And we've got our ebooks there as well. So a lot to check out. I'll just encourage you on this show to go to churchanswers.com. And if you aren't subscribed, you should subscribe because you're the first to hear things when you are subscribed. And we send out deals that only our subscribers get, that at least they would know about. So make sure you go to churchanswers.com. So it's free to subscribe to the emails, but we've also got memberships available as well. So you can click on the join button when you go to churchanswers.com and see our 3 tiers of membership: silver, gold, and platinum. The gold level is a phenomenal deal. I'll just say that. So would love to have more of you who are subscribers and members at Church Answers.
Yeah, one of our members just completed a Church Answers certificate. She did women's discipleship, and she was so very proud. She posted a picture of it, and we all celebrated with her. And so maybe that's a resource that you can pass on to your
that's
members.
Church Answers University. We offer certificates in both ministry and women's discipleship. So
love it.
You can go to churchanswers.university and go check that out.
Yep. And while you're checking all that out, make sure you rate, review, and subscribe wherever you get your podcast or on the YouTubes. Go over and see some of our stuff, give it the thumbs up, and pass it along. Share it with those in your social media circles. We are certainly thankful that you are watching and listening, and we'll see you next week.